Hello, Collie. As always, you're the first one here, which is super sweet. So I do have some music coming through my Scrabble tonight. How is the volume? Oh, hi, Mage Armor. I was here. I was just being quiet. Okay, good. The music is good. Hello, Kaz. Welcome. Glad I have some of you here tonight. Yay, okay. So, that's good to know. So, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I haven't really done one since my debut, so I just thought it would be fun to do something kind of more laid back. Oh no, okay, hold on. I'm gonna have to move stuff. Because I guess the new thing I put up is covering the chat. Okay, let's see here. One moment. Okay, I think it should be fixed now. It looks like it is, okay. Well, but see, that's why I don't worry about this kind of stuff. You know, because things are bound to happen and you just can't get upset about it, you know? So yeah, I didn't really have anything in mind specifically that I wanted to talk about. I just kind of wanted to hang out and maybe see how the week and how the month has been for you all so far. And also maybe just get some suggestions on some higher level redeems for my Twitch channel. Because one of my friends, Aiden, was very interested in having some more types of redeems, and I'm not feeling very creative at the moment, so I am looking for suggestions. Okay, I see, Mage Armor, that you've redeemed Tiefyweefy and Headpad, so I'm gonna go ahead and conjure my Mage Hand, and then I'm gonna do some wiggles. There you go! Yay! Okay, I'm gonna make my Mage Hand invisible now. Chill Friday, that's good to hear. Hey! Starlight, welcome! Yeah, I have a couple redeems already, as a lot of you probably know if you've been on my channel a bit. But yeah, so I'm looking for some new suggestions that you think would be fun and interesting and would fit my personality, because I'm not really one to do really, high energy things. I want to do things for my redeems that people find valuable or that they might come to only Tiffy for. But yeah, I really like the Mage Hand and the Head Pat one. That's one of my favorites to redeem. And I'm having a little bit of help, still tweaking some stuff in my Scrabble. Thank you all for being patient. So I know that sometimes people come to me a lot for advice or comfort, and thank you for following, Starlight. Thank you so much. So I was kind of thinking maybe a redeem could kind of follow what I see one of my friends do, which is just give words of encouragement or like positive affirmations. I could maybe do that as a redeem. I could maybe have a give advice redeem if like anyone's been having a tough day and they want a little bit of advice. I could do something like that. I end up doing it a lot for some of my group members already, so That is something I could do. But again, I'm interested in suggestions. But those were a few I thought of off the top of my head. So Collie says, yeah, giving advice, positive affirmations are great. So I'm definitely going to say that could be a higher kind of redeem and all that good stuff. I know I already have a story time and things like that, so that will fit in nicely. Yeah, like I said, I'm not feeling very creative. I know that some people do things where they read off lines, and kind of act them out, or, get a little bit serious. I don't know if that's me. I have a couple of friends that will read particular chat messages in a particular voice and do things like that. I don't know if that's my thing. Yeah. Suggest a poll. I could, that would actually be a good thing to do, too, and, yeah, that might be good, and I also know I've heard of some people being able to do straw polls for things in chat. That might be fun to do too, just on the fly. I would have to figure out how to do those on Twitch if I wanted to just make polling people for things something that I do, in addition to just posting something on Twitter and being like, hey everyone, what would you like to see me have as redeems? I could do that as well. I was just thinking of something and it flew right out of my head, so hopefully it'll come back to me, but if it doesn't, I'm not gonna worry too much. But I've had a pretty interesting week myself. For those of you who were able to join me earlier in the week, you know that I did a fairly long series of streams a few days ago, where I did this review of Candlekeep Mysteries as part of that, and then later on in the night when it went back into this visual novel that I'm still playing through. I think it's been really interesting that people are actually kind of interested in what my thoughts are on the Candlekeep stuff. I wasn't expecting anyone to be really interested. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I know I haven't been, in IRL. I haven't been doing these kinds of role-playing games for very long. But I guess as a, D&D tiefling and as someone who tries to bring her own version of disability representation into these tabletop spaces, I guess maybe that accounts for some of the interest, because a lot of people wanted to know what I made of the content from where I'm sitting, so I thought that was kind of cool to find that out this week and just be able to share my VOD with people and feel like they were actually interested. I think that's an honor for me, especially since I know I was really kind of grilling that material because I was coming at it for a very specific purpose, looking for very specific things. So I'm pretty sure that some of my thoughts are not gonna be common, I guess is the word. I guess I might not have a very popular opinion of that book, but it's all right. And Sister Rose is here, and she says, "Hey, TV, what are you chatting about?" Oh no, what book and what's your hot take? Okay, well, I was just basically chatting about the stream I did a couple of days ago where I covered that new Wizards of the Coast D&D book, Candlekeep Mysteries. It's a new source book. Basically, it's a series of adventures for people who play Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And I had said that I was going to kind of look over a digital version that I had purchased and kind of give my thoughts on it, especially because there was an article that had been published about the Candlekeep Mysteries back in December saying, oh, it features the first wheelchair accessible dungeon. And so I was really kind of looking at that going, well, when they say wheelchair accessible, what does that mean? How comprehensive is it? And how well done is it? How immersive is it? And so I was really going into the Candlekeep Mysteries thinking, okay, so it's gonna maybe be more disability focused, and maybe they're actually gonna focus some of the content around that, and maybe starting to explore some of the disability experience, or people who want to play Dungeons and Dragons a different way. People who want to embrace like a disability dialogue or their experience as a person with a disability in tabletop. So I was going to Candlekeep Mysteries really hoping that it was going to be the beginning of this larger discussion, since there had been so much of a blow up around Artificer Sarah Thompson's combat chair last year as an item she created. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe this is finally their answer to that, since they're bothering to say in this article that it's specifically wheelchair accessible. So, long story short, essentially, I looked through the beginning parts of the material where they're setting up the location of Candlekeep and what that area is like, and I was just noticing how much the artwork and stuff ended up just depicting things like stairs and other kind of inaccessible elements. And so right off the bat, even though the book says, well, the dungeon master can do whatever they want, for me, I was sitting here on my disc saying, well, I would have really liked them to come out and had an answer and really embrace a more accessibility focused location, or made some more effort to point those details out in writing. Because to me, as a writer and someone who thinks about that a lot, it matters to me what I see in writing and also what I don't see in writing. And while there were some particular examples of some of the other scholars in a part of Candlekeep's library using a disc like mine to go up and down so they could reach different bookshelves, I was just not very impressed with that first part. And then when it actually came to looking at the one dungeon that I found out was the accessible one, it did mention the word ramps, in the map, but I didn't feel personally that it was integrated in a meaningful way into the quest or into the environment to say, yeah, we purposely made this for an adventurer with a disability or an adventurer in in something like a combat chair. And then, so I just kind of felt like it's there, but it's not there. It's like I felt like it was the bare minimum, and I felt like it wasn't really the experience I had been hoping for, which is more official recognition from Wizards of the Coast. That there are adventurers with disabilities and there are tabletop players with disabilities who may want to play themselves. And so I just really wasn't happy. And Sister Rose said the DM can do whatever they want anyway. What did the wizards do? It's like the tuxedo mask meme. It's a lot of what I felt like they didn't do, and I felt like I was geared up to be able to experience. That I wish there had been more of, and so even with that little mention of ramps in that one dungeon, sure, it's, quote, more accessible than all of the other dungeons, per se, which have things like stairs and narrow hallways, which do nothing to mitigate these accessibility issues. So I suppose by comparison, yes, it's more accessible, but it really didn't do what I was hoping, which is just to really be deliberate about it, especially when a lot of their player base reacted very negatively to an item such as magical combat chair. So that's kind of the long and short of it, really. And Mage Armor says, I have a cool idea you might like as a channel points thing. I was setting up for my own stream. Once I work out how to do it, I'll drop you a message. I'm very intrigued. I would love that. I'm always interested in trying new things. That would be lovely. But it's okay that Candlekeep wasn't all that I expected, although it did give me a good way to represent my family's keep and everything. Yes, I do see that redeem. I'm gonna go ahead and do it here. Okay, I'm gonna conjure my mage hand again. And now we're gonna do some cute wiggles. Okay, there you go. And I'm gonna make my mage hand invisible again. Oh, it's okay. Using mage hand to pat yourself is a real procaster movie. Thank you. Yeah, I think so too. Plus, it makes sure that when no one else is around to give you head pats or encouragement, you can give them to yourself and give yourself a little bit of a mood boost, which is good. So yeah, it's okay that Candlekeep, for me, wasn't exactly what I was expecting, because it gives me at least something to have shown people to say, hey, this is what my home actually looks very similar to in terms of Brightlock Keep, and it allowed me to have a discussion about how my family does accessibility differently, and it also made me realize how similar in some ways I am to these scholars, the avowed, I guess as they're called, who are at Candlekeep. It made me realize how similar to them I am in terms of what my power sets are for the most part and what my skills are. So at least by being able to jump into that, and float around in it, hover around in it for a while, it made me realize, wow, I'm not really so strange. I actually have skills and abilities that would make me fit in very well here. And Coley says, yeah, it's pretty much a 1-to-1. And I would say that's pretty accurate. So it's gotten this little Tiefy thinking about maybe some future plans for herself. Plans that might finally be to get out of this library and out of this keep and kind of do something else and get away from my father and get away from some of his influence and just kind of maybe go literally be around some like minds, but also maybe have a disability dialogue with them while I'm there and saying, hey, Candlekeep scholars, there are many different kinds of scholars, and so we might want to make this as welcoming and as accessible to every kind of scholar as we can. So in that way, it's been good. It's given me even more of a view outside of my kingdom and has given me a chance to maybe consider some next action points that I might pursue. And Sister Rose says, who in the chat has mobility issues? And what thoughts do you have in terms of accessibility in D&D and other RPGs? And Kali says, I don't have mobility needs like Tiffy, but certainly the addition of the combat chair and related ideas are absolutely needed. Yes, they are. And Cass says, you go, girl. Oh, thanks. Yeah, so this has really given me an opportunity to kind of look at what's there and ask myself, well, TV, if you had the opportunity to go to a place like Candlekeep with all of your experience, how would you change that for the better? And Sister Rose says, because of my chronic pain and how it tends to trigger an area where I had operations when I was younger, I get around with a cane. My current character has high dex and no mobility issues, but I was thinking about my next character maybe having something mobility-wise. I think if you're ready to have that in a character, I think that would be awesome. I think that there's been for me a very valuable and very empowering energy that I've gotten from being able to embrace this concept of disability in fantasy in general, but particularly a game like Dungeons and Dragons, where there is often an emphasis on being the strongest, the most able, the most reliable, quote unquote, in certain scenarios. And so for myself and for other members of my family, we have kind of tried to change that dialogue around and be like, not every one who wants to be a hero has to have the best physique or has to be the best physically. And I think by even engaging that in an adventure sense, we leave ourselves open to having newer and more complex, more interesting dialogues than if everyone's the exact same, or everyone's able-bodied, or everyone's neurotypical. Let me catch up on chat here. It might be cool to play a character with some kind of prosthesis, but it actually being referenced rather than just a refluffed limb. I agree. I think that prosthetics are absolutely an option, and I think that's absolutely a way you could represent things about disability. Especially because I can't remember which of my friends that it was, and it may have been on a different cast or something, but that actually reminds me. Oh yeah, I remember who it was. It's one of my friends, Junior VTuber. He actually asked me a question. It was on one of my YouTube uploads, and they said, so I used to have this player, or maybe it was even players, but anyway, Junior said they had this player who wanted the prosthesis only for the cool physical attributes, not for the actual disability dialogue. That they only wanted the prosthesis because it looks cool, or it allows them to shoot bullets or lasers out of it, or whatever it was. And so Junior said that at the time he was very uncomfortable with that, and that he actually approached the player or players and said, well, if you want a character with a prosthesis, you have to be willing to play the disability dialogue that goes along with that. You have to be willing to role play what that's like to lose a limb and then gain a limb. And they said that this player or players got really angry, and they said, well, I should be able to play what I want because I want to play it. And so Junior asked me, he said, as a person with a disability who's been both a player and a DM, he said, was I wrong in being too sensitive and basically telling this player that that was a crappy reason to want to play a character with a disability? And long story short, my answer was no. I said, I applaud you for having that reaction. I think that's fair, and that's actually a good reaction on behalf of our demographic, because it actually highlights the reverse, not just the people who don't want to deal with disability, but the people who only want to roleplay disability or have disability because of the perceived perks. So I applauded him and was very grateful to him for his viewpoint and his courage for asking me about that, because I felt like it was a valuable discussion point. And let me just catch up on chat now after that so I don't lose what you all are messaging me with. Mage Armor says, I have a nerve condition in my hands that I have played in-game as well. That's brilliant. That's wonderful. And I'm glad it sounds like maybe you have a DM and a group of players who was completely okay with that and didn't make you feel weird or out of place. And Sister Rose says, I'm wary of portraying things I can't account for, but I also don't want to just play myself. My previous character, for example, had dissociative disorder. I don't as such, but I do have dissociative symptoms. My current character has ADHD, as do I, but it presents differently in her. And I think that that's fine. I think that it's healthy and appropriate for us to explore variations on our disabilities or other kinds of disabilities, as long as we are doing it with the mindset that there are people who actually have to live with these conditions, and do our best to educate ourselves about those conditions and the way that they truly do affect people who live with them. And I gotta make sure I keep up on chat. But he was told he could play it. He just had to play it right. And I kind of, and I gotta catch up on the, chat here. I think that the key is always just look at the motivation behind wanting to make those character choices. I think that I would personally appreciate anyone who wants to take a look at disability and do it with compassion for what's happening to those people who actually live with it. And I think, Major Armor, I think that's cool that you have your current character with a prosthetic. I am very sure that you are doing your best to roleplay that in a way that you feel is authentic and gives a bit of realness to the character. Because I think that's my main thing too, is that if you only want the character with a disability to play because it looks cool, you run the risk of having them boiled down to, oh, it's the guy with the gun for the arm or the metal leg and so on and so forth. But I trust that you are doing what you can with that character and really exploring the multidimensionality of disability. And Sister Rose says it's like saying, hey, I want to play a ranger, but I also want to cast divine spells without multiclassing. Yes, I suppose that is an accurate or fair example. And Kaz says, I made a character who was cursed not to be able to read or write since I have dyslexia and want to make that part of me in character. I think that's a brilliant thing to do. It's actually my whole experience with Dungeons and Dragons is pretty much that to one degree or another. Not only with like myself that I am at this moment, but my mother as well. I have been putting parts of disabilities that I have experience with into both of these creations, into both of these experiences, so that I have the chance to roleplay them and have more pride in them. I feel disability as tragedy and disability for the cool stuff are both inferior to disability can be hard, but also you can still be cool. Exactly. And to be honest with you, that's, in a way, I think that's why I personally have tried to be the kind of YouTuber that I am and have the kind of presence that I have. Least of which being the fact that I get to show you all my arcane disc, is that I did want my representation of disability to be cool and realistic. That even as a content creator, For instance, when I'm playing various games and the like, and I don't do very well, or I have moments where my brain or my muscles shut down, one of the biggest reasons that I want to continue making content around that is because I want to show that I'm not embarrassed of my disability. I'm not angry with it, even when it can be frustrating, and I want to show other people that it's okay to be out and proud with your disability, the same as it is okay to be out and proud about being queer or, any other part of your identity. And I desperately want disability to be seen as cool and a natural part of life. It's a natural part of diversity. It's a natural part of how living progresses. No one stays singularly able their entire life. In other words, no one's ability stays the same. As they grow older, everyone's going to lose some abilities or other, and I think that this is maybe one of the reasons why even in tabletop people tend to get a little squeamish around even representing disability, because there's such an attitude in most cultures in your world and even in some parts of mine that just say, oh goddess, no, the worst thing that can happen would be for you to become disabled, or would be for you to lose such and such functionality. And I think that if we as societies just started accepting that ability is something that changes, and that it is something that we should have a better attitude towards, I think that ultimately we would treat those with disabilities from birth or otherwise with more than just sadness or anger, or this thing that you were pointing out about tragedy as disability. I think that in a way that's also what I'm attempting to do by being a VTuber, is to say maybe we do need to have more discussions around this. Maybe we really do need to look at the way we view the value of functionality, however we're defining that, whether it's in the brain, the body, the emotions, anything like that. You can still be cool, and that's what having a cool mechanical limb should represent. Yes. It's one option out of many for you to step up. I drew, and then Mage Armor says, I drew very cool art for the new character too. He's a mage, and he's cool but kind of mean, but also is struggling in a way that one with one arm might do. I think that's a very interesting take, especially since some of my players, their first response to how do you limit a mage is to break their fingers or their arms even. So I think that's a very interesting thing that you're doing, because in a way you are almost combating this idea that kind of debilitation ruins a mage, when in fact your character could prove the very opposite. That magecraft has not everything to do with the somatic components, or the somatic or gesture components done in a specific way. So I think that you have a very cool opportunity to challenge some assumptions about that, and to maybe counteract some of those kinds of players that I've had who, when they see a mage, they're like, go for the fingers, go for the arms. And I'm just like, ah. You know, I mean, I know that debilitation is part and parcel of the game, but with that in mind, you'd think that people would react a little bit better to adventurers with disabilities, considering many adventurers survive various debilitations. But hey, that's just me. And Sister Rose says, I think as long as people are being respectful, really. I wouldn't take offense, for example, for someone who knows what they're doing to headcanon their character as autistic. Yeah, I mean, I think that as long as it's done to be well-intentioned and that they do have some kind of connection with that so that they are portraying this authentically, I think that can do some good. I am of the somewhat belief that if you are going to embody that, it's a responsibility of yours to have some sort of connection with it yourself and some kind of stake in representing that, so that it doesn't become sort of yet another representation that it might do more harm than good, if you know what I mean. But I don't say that to discourage anyone from role-playing what they want. I would like to just think that it's me kind of as a dungeon master or someone who has been the dungeon mama in some cases, to just encourage my players and encourage players of the game to be more compassionate and aware, and multidimensional in the way that they think and relate to disability as a whole. It's one of the reasons Wonderland was my least favorite TAZ balance chapter. And then Mage Armor says, there have been some good moments in the game that really let me show that the character I'm playing is much more than the guy with the metal arm, and that's so cool. And as you say that, it kind of reminds me of this anime, Full Metal Alchemist. It just kind of reminded me of that because Edward Elric, which I'm sure probably most of you know, does have a metal arm and a metal leg, actually. And those prosthetics are one of the main ways that he gets the power and the ability to not only work the magic of an alchemist, but to do it in a way that no one else can really do. Hi, Aiden, and thank you for hosting my stream. Good to see you. I'd share his art if I could, so proud of it. You should share it. I would love to see it. I don't know if you want to post it on Twitter or send me a direct message. I would love to see your art. And then let's see. Okay, I'm all caught up on chat, so I think that's really wonderful. That some of you have already taken to that. I think as someone who has been a dungeon mama and a player, that makes me really happy. Because it just reminds me that there are a lot of people out there who do use roleplay for some of the same things that I like to use it for. So it's just a really good feeling to know that I'm not really the weird one, and that by insisting that people pay more attention to it, that I'm also not the weird one either. So seeing as this month is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, and I see that Kaz redeemed a hydrate, I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit more water. With it being Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, I'd also be willing to field questions about that particular disability, as it is what I have myself. Okay. And so Sister Rose says, what do you think of Esmeralda TV? Could you tell me who that is? I don't know if I know which character you're referencing. I might, but my brain is having a bit of a moment. So if you could give me a little bit more information, I would love to give you my thoughts or my non-thoughts on that. How does it affect you specifically, since there seems to be variance and different levels of mobility? That is a good question. Okay, she is from Curse of Strahd. She is a Romani vampire hunter. Dodgy Romani around the rep side. Rep aside. I can't really say because I've only given the Curse of Strahd a cursory glance, but now you've gotten me intrigued. I did read in an article that there were some revamps, no pun intended, to that work, as well as a few others to make them more disability sensitive. But you've made me more curious now to see about that character so that I could actually formulate a thought and better answer your question. But I will answer your other one about my particular version, let's say, of cerebral palsy. So for me, it mostly affects my ability to walk. That's the most notable. I can ambulate a little bit on my own, but I have to use various arcane assist devices, IRL, to do that. And I also can't move for very long distances. Other than that, I do have one side of my body that is a little tighter than the other, so that means I'm actually a little bit one-handed in the fact that my right hand doesn't have much mobility. And so this is a big reason why when I play some of the video games and things, you will see me struggling. That is in part because literally my right hand can't do much more than just hold the other side of the controller. But in addition to that, I think my cerebral palsy also affects some part of my neural processing and some of my spatial things. I'm not really sure in what way, as I've not really been diagnosed, but because my cerebral palsy started in the brain, because of something that happened when I was a very little baby. I would not be surprised if some other parts of my brain were rewired a little bit differently, or that sometimes affects like my processing or some of my spatial issues, which I know some of you have probably seen if you've been watching my streams and my casts for long enough. But overall, aside from that and having a bit of a startle reflex and some spastic muscle stuff where they just kind of tighten up and they shake a little bit, other than that, as you probably can tell, I'm not really affected in some other ways that other people with cerebral palsy can be affected, which is much more their brain and much more their throat and their ability to communicate through spoken speech. But that doesn't necessarily mean that even when they are that way, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not smart. Okay, let me catch up. Kali says, pretty good looking lass. And Cicero says, I think she's a cool character, except they should give her an actual disabled Romani writer. I agree, and you bring up a good point. Which is, I know some people who are sensitivity readers and they are disability consultants for people who make content, whether that be RPG books or movies or novels or anything like that. While I like the fact that there are such job titles as a sensitivity reader, meaning someone within the demographic, whichever it is, that reads material and says, is this sensitive to the issues we really face? Is this accurate to the issues we face or not? And then a consultant kind of does the same thing, except they tend to be there when the thing is being created, where they're actually there to give feedback and say, okay, for instance, someone who needs to use a wheelchair, how do they move around their space? How do they think about space? How do they relate with themselves? But to kind of get to my point about that, while I think it's great that we, as people with disabilities in this instance, can be advisors and consultants and a canary of sorts where we can show you how to be sensitive, I would much rather see creators and writers with disabilities actually being hired for these writing jobs and hired for more than just that. I think there are just so many times where creators without disabilities end up getting all the rewards for writing this kind of content. Meanwhile, our demographic is often passed up for those kinds of positions when we really would be probably the best suited. And let me catch up on chat, because I can see I'm falling behind again. The lady I look after is a Romani amputee. She'd never play D&D though. The other big thing is that the artificial division between being able to walk and fine and being totally wheelchair bound, as opposed to someone who can walk but still uses a wheelchair to cover distances. That's also a good point. I have experienced that a lot myself, because people assume that I can't get out of my chair at all, that I can't move myself at all IRL. And so when they see that I can move a little bit, it's almost like they don't know what to do with me, because they're like, wait, you have to use this assist device. And we see you in that a lot, but here you can walk a little bit. Why can't you just walk a little more? And I'm like, well, it doesn't really work that way. My body and a lot of people who have kind of that range are a good example of how ability is actually on a spectrum, and that there can be a spectrum of ability, not just in what kind of physical ability you have, but how much it affects you from day to day. And I think that this is the other thing I want people to know, from my perspective, is that because my disability prevents me from doing things the same way twice, and because my hands and muscles can be affected by things that I'm not even aware of sometimes, it can make the proposition of doing something I've done 20 times before or more not a done deal. Because I can get up and do something the first try one day, but then get up a few days later and my body has just decided, nope, it's gonna take 5 tries today. And so I think there's a good and bad part to that for me, is that it has made me persistent. It has made me bullheaded, and it has made me try until I succeed. And so that's the good part. The bad part is it's also given me, in some ways, a lack of confidence in certain areas, because there are just things where I'm gonna sit there and say, can I do this today? Can I do it by myself, or am I gonna find out that I need help to do it? And what if there's a chance that the help that I have, which is usually Kali, what if there's a chance that he's not at the keep when I need him to be, to help with that? And Aiden says, how has your day been? My day has been going pretty well, actually. I'm very glad that I was able to spend some time today hanging out with my group and my friends, of which you are one. And I just felt really good that I was able to be present and be available for people more today than I have been over the last couple of days, because I've just been busy. So that was a really good part of my day, to be able to be there for people and listen to them and let them know I was thinking about them. Especially for you, Aiden. That was a good part of my day, to be able to be with you and support you and just kind of be there for comfort and everything. Mage Armor says, I think they got a person of Romani descent to help in rewriting the material going forward. Read that somewhere. That's cool, Mage Armor. I hope that's true. And Sister Rose says, baby teeth. Oh. And then Collie says, do you think your CP made your magic a bit wild? Yes, absolutely. If we think of magic as something that trails our muscles and our blood vessels and all of those fine fibers in our body, I would have no trouble imagining that the spasticity in my body also translated to my magic and made it so that it was more unpredictable and spastic in a way, and would make it do things that I was not in control of, and would have a very unpredictable result, almost like the magical version of what was already going on in my body. I wouldn't doubt it. And I actually like that you bring that up. I think that was a very fun question to answer. I think, yes, I think that we need to stop thinking of like magic as something really outside of us. It may start outside of us, but it quickly like becomes part of our being in one way or another. It quickly starts to mirror who we are. Sister Rose says, I really liked how the anime Yuki Yuna, and I'm so glad you brought that up, paid a lot of attention to that, even if the character was only temporarily disabled. I love that you bring that anime up because it's not a lot of people bring that one up, and I think it's because maybe not a lot of people know about that anime. I did like how they handled the disability dialogue with the main girl. I thought they did a brilliant job on it, at least initially, and I loved how they gave her basically a transformed state of a sort where she could use her ribbons as a way to ambulate, to move around, and to use the various weapons and various other things that she needed to use to help out the team. I really, really, really enjoyed that, and I was really hoping for this anime to go forward with that. Hi Lucia, thank you for hosting. Thank you so much. I was really hoping that they were gonna continue that representation. Well, that's what I meant. I meant Togo, not Yuna, but I'm sorry. I think of Togo as the main girl. That's how much I like her, to be honest with you. I think they did a really good job with Togo, and as I say, she was one of my favorite characters, and I was really hoping that they would continue this sort of positive dialogue around how being disabled and being a hero wasn't tragic, that it actually made Togo even more cool and even more awesome. And so I remember watching that anime and saying, they've finally done it. They've finally made a heroine with a disability who is badass, who doesn't need the functioning body in the way that we think to kick ass and to be protective. Look at the way she can use those ribbons. Look at the way she can move up and around and all over the place. She is not only equal to her party members in that sense, but she's almost, like Collie says, she steals the show from them because she's so unique. And for that reason, I really loved the anime. But things, in my opinion, took a dive. And this is kind of funny that we're talking about this, because this is almost down the lines of all the anime content that I was gonna do and have all these screenshots for. But it's kind of cool that I get to talk about it now. And what I have to say is, I thought that was all cool and all very well done until the story, almost like the writers or somebody there, went, oh my goddess, wait, oh no, we can't have so much disability positivity. If we did that, people with disabilities might actually start to like themselves. Because at least that's the way I interpreted it, because at the certain point, when the anime starts saying, you know, that the disability is a result of the sacrifice, right, of fighting these battles, and that the more you fight, the more of yourself you essentially give up, right? That's not necessarily the part that I had a problem with. I think that that's an interesting way of looking at disability in kind of a more heroic way, less tragic. is to say, what if disability in a way is a sacrifice for something bigger than yourself? What if a debilitation, like in my auntie's case, when she had to go rescue her child from kidnappers and she gets a trident through the back, what if disability is seen as the same way, that it is a sacrifice or it is a sign of nobility, that you take a hit to your physical or mental or emotional thing? I thought that was at least an interesting setup. What I didn't like that the anime started to do, though, was it started to say not only was it a sacrifice, but that the people sacrificing it started having this dialogue of that the sacrifice, because it was becoming more and more disabled, was not worth the noble cause, right? So this is where I started feeling that the anime, whose message had started out as very disability positive, quickly started eroding into, this is the worst possible thing that could happen. Like, no one wants to sacrifice this much. And I just remember this scene where the girls, including Togo, end up visiting a place where one of the first protectors was, and that they gave up so much of their functionality that they were trapped in a bed and that they were blind and had all of these kinds of disabilities, right? And I just remember how they drew that scene out, because everything they did in that scene is purposeful. And so they drew the bed in a certain way, they drew the way that she was lying in bed in a certain way, and they basically had this character say, I am so disabled, I don't want to live anymore. And those of you who think you are nobly sacrificing, you're doing nothing but destroying your bodies. And for what? And I just remember thinking, well, isn't that the most horrible way that you could take something that I was starting to feel good about and once again turn it into this dialogue of the last thing you want to be is a person with a disability, no matter if you came by that by noble means or by way of a sacrifice or by way of birth or whatever. I just felt like the anime from that point on basically said, we can't have people feeling okay with their disabled bodies or the disabled bodies of people they know. We can't have this, because as the anime progresses, and the girls end up sacrificing more, each of them gains their own disabilities. They end up losing sight, they end up losing their voice and the use of their limbs, all that kind of stuff. So the debilitation dialogue is super strong and super purposeful. But where it goes wrong is it takes something that when I was watching them fight to keep the rest of the earth safe, I was feeling proud. I was like, yes, go. Like, this is gonna be worth it because of who we're saving, and because of what we're doing. This is gonna be worth it. Only then to see, after they've come by these disabilities, as the story says they will, all of the characters express disdain and hatred almost for the way that they've become. And even Togo, who starts out the series kind of rolling with her disability. Even Togo, after seeing one of the first heroes that I mentioned a few moments ago, even Togo says, well, I wouldn't want to become disabled like that. Even that is too much for me, or something along those lines. Right, so effectively what we have is our heroine, the person we're supposed to look up to, these girls that we're supposed to look up to, as maybe disability can be magical, and maybe it can be brave, and maybe it can be empowering. And all of a sudden, near the end of the anime, all of them are just saying, we don't like the way we are, and everyone around them is treating it like it's the ultimate tragedy. And even they end up saying, well, none of this was worth it. I wish that I could just see again, or speak again, or move again, or hear again. And I just remember watching that and going, ouch. Like, not just for me, but for lots of other people with those kinds of disabilities. Can you imagine what it would be like to finally have a hero with a hearing or sight impairment, for instance, or some kind of representation of that, only to have that character say, but it doesn't matter because I hate being this way. I mean, that in that moment, they basically undid everything that I thought they were finally doing well with this. But it goes further than that. Not just the fact that they made these girls have this kind of self-hatred and this fear of debilitation. It goes further in that when they are given the chance, spoilers, when they are given the chance to undo their disabilities by kind of foisting this duty or this destiny on other people, they willingly take it. They basically take the cure for their disabilities. All of them do. Ending with the anime showing them being like, yay, we're normal again. Yay, we're normal. We're not disabled. And basically that when the anime sort of questions them and says, are you really okay with sentencing other young women or other young men to this duty, the anime just basically has them say, or at least give me the feeling like they're okay with this as long as it's not them who's disabled. Which I'm gonna sit on my disky soapbox for a little bit longer, and I'm gonna say that alone tells me we have something very dangerous in this society, which says everyone who isn't having to deal with a disability doesn't want it to be them who becomes disabled. The consensus seems to be, because of how reasonable the anime makes that conclusion be, right? The anime makes it reasonable that you yourself wouldn't want to be disabled. And that you would want to foist it on someone else. To me, that just really paints this societal issue of, well, I don't want to be disabled, but it's okay if these people over here have the disability. It's okay if they do, because then I can look down on them. I can feel sorry for them, but I don't personally have to deal with the results of my own actions or deal with what we've set up in society toward people with disabilities. And I've had a couple friends before I got into VTubing. I'm gonna share something from a dear friend of mine. She passed away last year. But I'm gonna share something with you that she shared with me. And she was a lot older than me. And she said, Tiefy, I want you to understand one thing. She said, people without disabilities are afraid of becoming like us for 3 reasons. 1, they don't know what they would do if they had to deal with limits. They are afraid of what that would mean for them. They are afraid of feeling helpless. They are afraid of confronting weakness. They don't know what life would be like if they couldn't just go and do as they please. So she said, number 1, it's that. Number 2 is that they have placed so much value on their physical capability that the very thought that they might lose that is bewildering to them. That they sit and look at themselves and they say, well, if I ever became disabled, like what good would I be then? And my friend used to laugh and say it's almost like they've forgotten they have a spirit and a personality. Because she said those things are more valuable than what a person can do. But because of this ass-backwards society that we live in, most people think that they have absolutely no value the minute something goes wrong. And I think the unfortunate thing is many societies in your world and mine, thankfully not in my kingdom, but many other societies enforce this. They say, well, as soon as you have something wrong with you, we have no use for you. As soon as you need more care, more attention, more anything, we have no use for you. And so it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is I think if we really want to see meaningful change in our attitudes and our depictions and our relationships with disability, we must change the way that we as a society take the realities of disability and turn them into things like value and worth and purpose. But my friend had a third reason. And the third reason is that because they know just what kind of society awaits them, a cruel, uncaring society. She said that is one of the biggest reasons that people become fearful of disability, because they know that whatever they've been giving out to other people with disabilities, that same thing awaits them when they themselves become disabled. But my friend always used to say, there's an easy way we can turn this equation around. What if instead of being fearful of the maltreatment, what if we use that knowledge to say, hey, perhaps we should be more compassionate. Perhaps we should be more conscientious. Perhaps we should be more giving and patient, knowing that many of us, even in our old age, are going to become less capable. But my friend always used to shake her head after she said that and say, well, if it were that easy, we wouldn't have to have all the disability rights that we have. And, this friend of mine was an archdruid. She would often help me reconnect with nature when I needed it, and she would reconnect me with my intuition when I needed. She was also a bit of an oracle. She would use tarot and other sorts of things to help me read some things in my future and some things in my life in general, and I actually bonded with her over that. But I just wanted to share her wisdom because she's no longer here to share it herself. Let me see. And Kaz says, okay, let me catch up on this. Kind of like veterans who lost their limbs. That's Kali. And he mentions Elfin Lied. And King Kaz says, Elfin Lied is one of my favorites. It is actually one of my favorites in terms of showing an example of how my mage hands actually work and the kinds of things that I could use them for. I don't really like the fact that they are very savage in the way of attacking, but I also do think that's cool that the mage hand in that anime can be used to not only help do things but can also be used to protect and do battle. I think that if I had to have an upgrade to my own mage hands, I might actually choose to have something like that, just so that if anyone ever were to get the wrong idea that there's this little tiefling on the disc over there that we can just shove off her disc or, pack unwanted stuff on, that I could take my mage hands and actually attack them a little bit and go, no, stay away and get off my disc and don't treat me like I can't deal with you. I've also been thinking about maybe making my disc something that helps protect me as well. Because it does spin and it is made of arcane energy. So I've thought about the next time someone thinks that they can just come into my space, that I could give my disc a command and that it would get into some sort of battle mode. And then Kali says, and yet I've seen some shows like Jackie Chan Adventures actually do some of those dialogues better when they do the See No, Hear No, Speak No episode. That's really cool. Kali, I actually would like to be able to watch that episode to see what you mean. Hashtag TV Soapbox, yes. And Kaz says, that's such a powerful message. I'm gonna go cry now. Oh no. Well, I'm sure my friend, the Archdruid, would be very warmed by that. She had many messages in life that she wanted to give out, and not enough time, unfortunately, so maybe I'll get to talk about her more in the future, but she had a really profound impact on me. And Kali says there is an example of an amputee in Elfin Lied in addition to the chair girl with like 10 mage hands. Battle TV unlocked, yes. So yeah, that's just, thank you everyone so much for bringing up all that stuff. I got to talk about some juicy, topics. I'm gonna just be vibing out to the music here. And just waiting for anyone and everyone who might have any more questions or observations or anything of that nature. Yes, Collie, I have been waiting to talk about anime on stream. I've been itching. My little wings have been itching like crazy to talk about it. So I'm glad that I finally got to talk about it a little bit, and maybe it will actually count for having actually discussed some anime. And this kind of gives me an idea that I might just do the anime thing, maybe in like a just chatting, a thing like this, but then write down more examples ahead of time so that I can actually talk to you all about specific animes instead of worrying over which clips and which screen captures and what am I gonna do about copyright and stuff. They can't copyright how I'm gonna talk about their work in the way I just did. So well, yeah, no official episode. I kind of want to highlight the fact that I did talk about this during this cast. I might even want to have a specific clip of that. Because I pretty much summed up my general thoughts on it. But this does give me an idea of how to approach some of the other animes that I have been wanting to talk about, such as Made in Abyss or Dororo or Silent Voice, obviously. Also, Inspector, some things like that. And also, if you or anyone you know might know of any other animes with disability in them, please feel free to message me on Twitter about them, as I'm always on the lookout for more anime or more manga to take a look at. Book recommendation out of my mind is Sharon M. Draper. Okay, that's good to know. Collie, I don't know if you're in a place where you could maybe help make a note. I can't really have my pseudo dragon out right now. Asha, who would normally help me with such scribing things, so if you wouldn't mind helping this time, that would be lovely. Thank you, dear. And so yeah, this kind of inspires me to just do like let's talk, but where I say like, you know, Tiffy talks about Made in Abyss or Tiffy talks about Dororo or anything like that. Welcome back! And I see that you have a redeem mage armor, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it for you. Conjure the mage hand. Boop! And then do the wiggles. Wiggle wag wiggle. Yay, okay. Mage hand can go away now. Oh, I think the headbats are great. I always like giving those to you, everyone. I feel like they're nice and warm and fuzzy in one way that I can, you know, give a little bit of my love and a little bit of my magic while I'm up here. But yeah, I'm really excited. This has given me maybe a pathway forward to talk about more of those things without getting myself mucked up and like, oh, how do I do this right? Or what about the copyright and all this stuff? I see the redeem, Sister Rose. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Yay! What are we talking about now? Well, I just finished kind of talking about, kind of some advice that, near and dear friend of mine who passed away last year, I was just sharing a bit of their wisdom. And then I was also kind of talking about how being able to talk about this stuff with all of you on this just chatting cast kind of has inspired me uh, to approach maybe talking about those animes or those mangas in a way that's more relaxed and not so skittish around things like, do I have the permission to use this clip or that clip, or how much of the footage I can use or not use. So I'm kind of excited about that. So that's what I've just been kind of talking about, and also asking for any recommendations anyone might have about more anime, manga, or books or anything like that. With disability as a focus, because I would love to look at more of that. And Kali Baba says, have you answered this yet? It's also been quite interesting role-playing with TV on a day-to-day needs of characters who need extra assistance. I did not answer that yet. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. It has been interesting to roleplay that, and actually, now that Colleen brings it up, that is a huge part of how my roleplay as a character and how my style as a DM in particular, that's very much what I like to do. Is I like to center the action and the character connections around the character with a disability who does need extra assistance, because I think that's a really brilliant way to say disability doesn't have to be a barrier. It doesn't have to be something you're afraid of. It doesn't have to be something that lessens the connection. It can be something that actually deepens the connection and gives the characters in a campaign or in a novel or anything like that, it can give the characters a reason to bond and care for one another in a much deeper and much more realistic way than if you didn't have the disability to work around. So I think that for me, that's a very important thing. It's not just representing disability in a physical sense, but disability in like a living life sense, in like a rhythm sense. To say, okay, this character with like a physical disability close to mine might take 45 minutes to get themselves dressed. Even with magical spells to assist them, it might take them a lot longer still to do something that an able-bodied person would do. Or like for me, needing Kali's help to do some of the dressing or get my food or do bathing. That's a really good example of, and I think I talked about this on part of the Candlekeep and If My Heart Had Wings stream, was to say that Kali and I actually met in my kingdom, because he was actually there to assist me in ways that no one else would have had the courage or the reason to help me. And had I been completely able-bodied, we might not have ever made that connection. And in fact, Kali, when he first met me, he said, you know, Tiefy, there are plenty of tiefling women around, and they are all beautiful in their own right, but none of them is riding on an arcane disc and holding themselves with so much confidence and sweetness. He said, I quickly have only eyes for you, because out of this whole town here, out of this whole kingdom here, you're the most interesting. And so that interaction would not be possible if I was the same as everyone else. And Kali says, Yeah, I think you simply talking about an anime series is a good way to move forward Tiffy talk style. I agree. As to the roleplay, plus it can lead to some really unique, steamy situations. Yes. And, Sela says, boop, boop. Sister Rose says, Tiffy best girl confirmed. And Collie says, this is true. Oh my. Okay. I guess I'll take that compliment. But only because there seems to be an agreement. Uh, um, Thank you. All of you lords and ladies are much too kind. Sorry, just kind of adjusting myself here on my disc. Alright, there we go. Should be a little more comfortable now. Gonna go ahead and give myself a little bit of a hydrate. You're looking straight into my soul, TV. I hope that's a good thing. I have been told I have a little bit of an insightful nature, so I hope you feel comforted by me. I know some people can be a little bit threatened sometimes with a little bit of my insight and my ability to read certain things, but I mean it all in a good way. I'm here to help people as much as I can. Just your gaze met my eyes like really strongly for a bit. Okay, I get that. Any plans as TW Brightlock? Collie. I'm actually still, trying to formulate what that would look like. For those of you who don't know, TW Brightlock is actually the, scribe's name that I'm wanting to give myself so that I can do some writing in this form, because in some past aspects of my life I have done work as a writer, both as a ghostwriter and as the creator of my own works, but I have been looking for a way and a reason to incorporate that writerly scribe self, but in the way that I am now, seeing as what I write might get more, I don't want to just say more attention, but that it might be more meaningful to people, given what I have been on here doing for the last good handful of months. A ghostwriter, yes. Ooh, I'm there, but I'm not there. Yeah, I heard the sheep girls model can stare to your soul too. Oh no. Oh no. But yeah, I did talk about this on my previous stream that I actually that I actually have nobody come for me. No, but like okay, but that I actually have worked as not only a ghostwriter, but as a ghostwriter of erotica. And so I found out that while Tiffy might not seem like she has, the life experience to be ultra lewd, my heritage as a tiefling does show up in the fact that I can write very, in my opinion, and in the opinion of who kept contracting me to scribe these pieces, that I have the ability to write erotica, not just good erotica, but great erotica, that stuff that actually people would want to read, and not just because it's like, let's get to the sex part. No, see, because what made me good at this job, and this is not just me saying this, the noblewoman who kept commissioning me for such works, she kept coming back saying that ever since I started scribing for her, those works have been even more popular than any of the other ones that she had ever had commissioned. In fact, I had to finish a work that some scribe had just not finished. And she would even come to me to fix entire stories. Not just because, we needed to be sexier. She did say that I wrote sex very well, but more importantly, that I wrote relationships in a believable and satisfying way. And so, I guess you could say, maybe in this case, I'm diet say so. But I would like to say that, and this is what I have said to some other people in the VTuber community in the past, I've said that for me, I think realistically there is a spectrum that we are all on. I think most of us might be say so more of the time and might be lewd sometimes, but and so because I tend to be more clean, let's say, I think that it's surprising for people to learn that I not only had a job like that, but that I do enjoy writing that kind of thing. Because it's just not something that I am very forward about in the same way. Yo, that's ghostwriter. Yo, that's boss. Yeah, no, I don't think I would want to be that kind of ghostwriter, but that's cool too. But see, I would like to define lewd in my case as not necessarily being lewd in that way where I'm just like, yeah, look at all my stuff, like here it all is on display or whatever, but to more just say I'm a sensitive tiefling, I'm a passionate tiefling, and I care about people having good experiences. I care about them reading good stories, and I care about those experiences being realistic, meaningful, and lasting. And so I have really tried to say that even if I do write erotica, and actually writing erotica as a VTuber would be something I would love to do more, because it would kind of marry my past lives and my current life. But I want to be able to do it in a way that still shows I'm making a point, and I'm making people feel good and inspired and passionate without it sort of devolving into this conversation of, well, Tiffy's just gone lewd and, that's all there is to it. Because, no, that's not all there is to it. I think it's important to say we can be sexual beings and we can be sexually expressed and we can be sex positive without meaning that that person suddenly becomes like one-dimensional, that then the sex becomes all that they are. And for me, that's just not the way that I want to do my presence on here. I want to have the ability to be a creative writer and do erotica, but I also want it to still serve those aims and show that you can be a really sexually realized individual without then just going along with being reduced to only that. Let me see what Sister Rose says. As a trans woman and being 34, I'm afraid to be lewd on streams in case it gets taken as predatory, particularly being autistic too. Oh, I can identify with some of those feelings, and I think for me, I just don't get lewd on streams for me personally, just because I want to be able to have discussions like this, like we're getting to have now, and I feel like if I was just being lewd for lewdness' sake, without the creative writing aspect of it, I feel like we wouldn't necessarily get to have these discussions. And I also feel like it would make it so that I couldn't relate to some of the younger generation out here. The between 15 and 20 or more people out here that I want to actually reach with a message of like disability and disability inclusion. And I feel like if there was too much lewdness just for the sake of being that way, I would lose my ability to reach those younger audiences, just because of that's what that kind of content does. It would require that I don't interact with younger kids in a positive, like, leadership or mentor type way, which I don't want to lose out on, because that is also a big reason I wanted to become a VTuber, is to try to be an example and be someone out here that could be not just a friend and an example of what's possible, but someone who is hopefully inspiring other people to look around at the world and say, what can I give to this world that it needs? What's that blank space that I'm supposed to fill in? So that's just kind of a long and short way of saying I would love to be able to use my scribe's name of TW Brightlock. I would love to be able to do writing under that, and find ways to use it not only for my own ideas, but for maybe people in the community who might like to have stories written for them. I don't really have any clear ideas of how that would work yet, but it is something I'm thinking about for reaching the 1,000 followers on Twitter milestone, is that I might actually open up a writing giveaway in which, I might write something for the winner that is a bit erotic or romantic, even, whatever their style is, whether it's like more romance and less like steamy, spicy stuff, or, some of the other way around. But that is one of the things I've been thinking is like, because I don't really do kind of the erotic stuff a lot. I thought that might be a good milestone thing to just say, yes, I'm capable of it, but I'm using it in very specific instances or in a very specific way. As what I do, and not just because. Because even in my past lives, I was using even the writing of erotica to make relevant and, in my mind, necessary points about, life in the world around me. I know, sister, you're not alone. I think there are a lot of people who might be able to relate. And I think it can be a tricky thing. What are your feelings for the not 18 tag on Twitter? Do you prefer to be able to reach broader, younger audiences with the more of your say-so / disability content? I would love to keep my main Twitter be that. What I might do though is if people are really interested in my scribe self, I could always make a Twitter that's for TW Brightlock that would allow me to say, if you are over here on this side, there is gonna be more adult content, just so that I don't lose some of the people that I really want to be here for, with my main account. Because I feel like the minute I say, oh, you have to be 18 and stuff, I'm gonna lose a lot of my friends. So I've been thinking that might be a good way to go, so that I'm not necessarily shutting out the audience that I've already built, but I'm also not shutting out the possibility of doing that other side either. And Kale says, well, that is very common with other tubers, and artists too, which is part of the reason that I was kind of thinking about that. Because I've also thought about, the way disability, is portrayed or not in erotic manga. And kind of wanting to explore some of that as well, or in more erotic games, or even just maybe even getting some of that stuff produced of me basically, but not just to say, hey, look, you can look at my lewds now, but more to just make a point of disability can be and is incredibly sexy, and we deserve as fellow creatures to have the option to be portrayed in that way if we are the ones making the decisions about that portrayal. I think that all too often there's this concept that, oh, if the person has a disability and this is in real life or in manga or anime, there's this concept that you can't and shouldn't engage the character or the person with a disability in a romantic, an erotic romantic situation, because somehow that would be impure, or that would be mean or evil to the person with a disability, and I don't agree with that. I think that is I could get on a whole discussion about that. I'm probably not going to here because that's actually a discussion about like sexuality and representation of people with disabilities in more erotic media. That's actually a discussion I want to have separately, but what I will say is I don't agree with that assessment. I think that is unnecessarily separating people with disabilities of all kinds from the rest of humanity, saying that the rest of humanity is a sexual being, but not people with disabilities. That you can't do that, and I just don't agree because the person with a disability, whether they're a character or a real person, regardless of how they're being seen on the outside, we are the same as everyone else. We do have similar desires, and we deserve to have the opportunity to experience them and express them. King Kaz says that would be really cool. I'd love to see that. Nothing wrong with a bit of smut, says Aiden. I agree, particularly when for me, like what I like to do is have the sexy bits, but also, like I mentioned earlier, try to do some good with it, or try to do some awareness building with it, let's say, where I'm trying to give you like a different perspective. And Kali says, not to mention there is not a lot of content in true age circles. No, there isn't. And the other problem is what there is very problematic for the most part, and is not what I would call a flattering or an accurate use or depiction of a disabled person in a romantic or erotic scenario. And Aiden says, that's bullshit. And I agree, but you would be surprised how many people kind of, they're okay with sexuality for themselves, but when it comes to certain people or certain characters in anime, like you know, and like Kali might have brought up somewhere here. I think that he mentioned something about Komi. That's kind of a good example of what I mean. Like Komi from Komi Can't Communicate, is like a good example of that, where because she's so sweet and so gentle and is dealing with anxiety and whatever other disabilities I believe she has. That's the thing I'm gonna say right now, is I believe Komi is actually a character with a disability, not only because of the anxiety disorder, but perhaps some other disorders that might be present there as well. But what I want to say is, what I have seen very briefly in some other content is this aversion and downright revulsion to even imagining Komi in an erotic sense or things like that. And so there are some in which she's with her main guy, but it's still been funny for me to see what the reaction is that toward a character like Komi or the sister in Demon Slayer, for instance. I don't remember her name, but it's the same kind of thing where they're like, oh no, they're too sweet and they have all these other things going on. We can't possibly elude them. Now, there is like an age thing with some of these characters that come into play too. But what I'm wanting to say is there seems to be this attitude toward people with disabilities that you shouldn't engage them in that way. And of course, you shouldn't do that if they're not open to that kind of engagement. But what I'm getting at is this societal kind of treatment that we are not sexual beings and that we should not be seen as sexual. And what that does is that actually unnecessarily deprives people of that opportunity, right? Which is kind of why I would be interested in exploring it for myself and having some of that content created, is to kind of combat this idea that a character with a disability or a person with a disability, welcome, cannot be seen in that way. Let me catch up on chat, because I've been noticing it scrolling by, and I've been trying to finish that thought. Yes, and there is where Collie said kind of like looting Comey, yes. And Aiden says, if I had the time and put the effort into it, I can loot anyone regardless of what disability they have. As an artist, I can probably draw anyone in a sexual light. I think I've seen tops a few bits of Yuki Yuna and Togo Yuri, and a few Nunnally and her assistant Dojins. And I am aware of those as well, which is kind of why I'm like, we need more. Not just because we're a bunch of lewd monsters out here being VTubers, but because that kind of representation is actually very important. Because without it, it can be very detrimental to young people with disabilities who want to have romantic and sexual experiences but are surrounded in a world where they are not depicted as being desirable that way. And like it or not, that is going to have an effect on the way a potential partner might see them. In fact, even before I met Kali, some of the lords, the young lords that were being brought to me of interest to be a partner were completely scared off of me by the idea and the reality that I had a disability, and they said, nope. We don't care if Tiffy is the princess of New Caldera. No, we don't want anything to do with that because she makes us nervous. And we don't know what to do with her disability. So go figure. It took Kali showing up and being like, I don't care. I'm not afraid of breaking her or, being like I'm somehow damaging her at a soul level or something by being with her intimately. It took someone like Kali to step in and be like, you're just like everyone else. You're different, but I'm not going to be intimidated by the idea that you might have sexual desires the same way that I do. And so I know I said I didn't really want to talk about this in detail, but I ended up doing so. But it's because it's really important. It's not just a matter of to be lewd or not to be lewd. Like, it's not just a question of that. It's more, how are we allowing people with disabilities to see themselves in a good light? And how are we encouraging or not encouraging society to include us in sexual and intimate depictions and discussions? Let me catch up on, and like, for example, yourself drawing lose yourself while still not taking away the fact that you're disabled. True. I know there are others I haven't seen yet, not that I would, but you get what I mean. Yes, I do. Komi is a pretty famous character from a manga series that I have not read much of, where the whole point is that she has difficulty communicating with her classmates and making friends. And so she's painted as kind of this shy but upstanding girl in high school, I believe, who also is like, I believe she's a class president or something like that. She has a meaningful position within the class, and so there's this idea that Komi is ultra wholesome, in kind of the same way that I am, in a way, just in terms of vibe. And so there's a lot of people in the anime and manga community that are like, because she's so sweet and kind, and also, they won't say this, but I'm gonna say it, and also because she has her anxiety disability or whatever other cognitive things she has going on, that they won't accept seeing her in too sexualized of a situation, that you just can't do that with her. Whereas with another character, you know, as one YouTuber put it, just go ahead and throw her to the wolves, because she's already been there, done that, and got the t-shirt, and so we don't need to worry about how polluted she becomes. Whereas the dialogue around Komi from this same VTuber, or not VTuber, but YouTuber, was completely the opposite. That Komi should be protected at all costs. And so I'm catching up on chat here. And the Lost Pause community has mused it is mostly due to Komi. And so we are talking about disability and Arrow. So Kale Sims for Imbloli. Yes and no. It's a little more complicated than that. Everything on Earth is meant to be looted, no matter what. Oh my goodness. I don't know about that. How would being around you make anyone nervous? You're adorable. I don't know, Aiden, but there were some young noblemen in my circle who just could not handle the kind of tiefling I was. Intimidating somehow, I guess. You know, but I just kind of have realized it's not really me. It's mostly them and their ability to sort of be strong enough but also gentle enough to sort of deal with a person like me on all the levels that I would need to be engaged with. Like, not just sexually, but like in the physical day-to-day stuff, which I honestly feel like you have to be a pretty special person in some ways to do that. And I'm not gonna say it's because, oh, people like that who take care of people with disabilities are saints or anything like that. No, I'm not trying to say that. They're just doing what comes naturally, and they're just treating people with disabilities the way they should be treated. It shouldn't be amazing that a person with a disability is treated with dignity or given intimacy or given love. That shouldn't be amazing. But I'm gonna say that it takes a brave individual who's willing to slow down and who's willing to acknowledge this thing about bodies that we have, where we're kind of afraid to really look at them intimately and deal with them intimately. And I think for me especially, having a physical disability, I've had to experience this a lot. That I don't really have the same concept of physical distance as a lot of non-able-bodied people, but I think that it takes, maybe not someone special, but it takes like a way of being and interacting with the world that a lot of people I don't think possess or are comfortable possessing. In other words, I think people would really have to slow down, and they would really have to say, to be with this person, my whole rhythm is gonna have to change. My whole way of thinking about how I do life changes, and the way I relate to my own body might change as well by helping them. Kali says, I guess it's amazing as the alternative is worse and much more common. Yes, unfortunately, it is a lot more common that people with disabilities struggle to find romantic partners, that they struggle to keep romantic partners. And when they do have one, it can be sometimes a struggle to keep them and fulfill all of their non-disabled partner's needs, even when supposedly that able-bodied partner knows what they are or are not capable of. Which goes back to my main point, which is why it's so important to have more erotic and romantic depictions of people with disabilities in relationships having intimacy. Because I think if we had more of that and we normalized it, we might actually see a positive result in society, in which people with disabilities are more readily seen as beautiful and sexually capable and romantically desirable and romantically necessary. Which would be part of my goal as TW Brightlock, and part of my goal in maybe commissioning some more revealing works would be for that purpose. And Aiden says, I don't really struggle finding people. Most people like what I look like. But most people will break off the relationship or cheat when I tell them when I tell them I have ADHD. But that's kind of a cousin point that you bring up. So, and I think this still kind of fits into kind of like dating or relationships with like disabilities, particularly the ones that aren't as physical like mine. I think it's wonderful that you have confidence and security in what you look like and what you offer. And I think it's terrible that people will cheat and like not stay in the relationship because of your ADHD. And to me, that's an example of this sort of ableist or neurotypical way of behaving that says, oh, the minute you have something else different about you, I don't want to have to put up with that. Like, I want someone normal. Is kind of what that sounds like, and that makes me furious. But it's also their loss. Because if they're not going to stick with you because of what you're dealing with in terms of ADHD, they're also giving up all the good qualities about you. And that's what I had to learn for my own self. Is that when people reject you, or they break off a relationship, or they add distrust into the relationship because of that, it's not you that's losing out, it's them, and they're showing how shallow and incapable they are of being with you. Like one person said, I don't want to be with you because you are too hyper. When I'm not hyperactive, but telling them I do usually fucks everything up. And that, Aiden, is exactly why I do want to have conversations about this, and I do want to tackle the overarching culture about how we deal with and perceive and value people with varying functionalities, because this kind of stuff shouldn't happen, and it does. And it just all comes back down to like functionality, and how the wider society says, well, if you don't measure up to whatever these standards are, then you're not equal, then you're not worthy of being pursued or stayed by, like that you're not worth committing to for various reasons. Meanwhile, I think people like that honestly have the greatest weakness of all, to me, that outshines any disability, which is a weakness in their character. To be able to appreciate something beyond what other people would consider normal. Macaulay says, would you, STW Brightlock, be willing to cover the adult sections of any VN's visual novels that you were reading or planning on reading? Yes. That might be a good place for me to do that, since a lot of my writing might be a little bit more geared toward that, because there are sections of If My Heart Had Wings, which is the visual novel that I'm working through right now. There are sections that I would like to be able to look at, and the only reason I'm not right at this moment is because they are very steamy and they are very sexual in nature, and so I would want a way and a space to talk about that. So perhaps using TW Brightlock would be a good place to do that, even if it is still me engaging in that kind of conversation. And Sister Rose says, I'm mostly giving up on hope of romance. Oh no. That makes me really sad to hear that, but I can also understand what might bring you to that feeling, because I was honestly there before I met Kali. And I was honestly there before I met a lot of people I've met now. Because it just seemed like to me I was a very tough sell for a lot of people, no matter all of my good qualities. And Aiden says, I haven't been in a relationship in 2, maybe 3 years, and I know how hard that can be. I waited a very long time to even experience what a relationship was like. I haven't been through as many breakups or anything like that, but I've certainly been through my own heartache. And I think there just comes a point where at some point everyone meets the person that they're supposed to meet, person or persons, who are actually not so shallow and can actually love you for who you are, and I truly believe that. And Kaz says that's not necessarily a bad thing. Take some time for yourself. I agree. I mean, but I also know how difficult it can be to want a relationship but not necessarily have one. Last person I was with cheated on me about lying to her granddad to stop her, not going out to a race. And then go to a rave and sent me a video of her kissing a new lad, and ever since it's just fucked my confidence down, to not want to be with someone. She lied about her granddad dying. Oh no. Aiden, that's horrible. In case nobody's told you, that person sounds like they're not a very good woman and they are not a very good human being. I hope that even though that happened, I hope that you won't let that person steal from you your confidence and your faith in maybe there being someone better out there, because that's on her. The fact that she felt she could treat you that way boggles my mind. I would say if you can, try to just release her from your mind and your heart. Because she does not sound like a person or a woman that deserves to take up any valuable space in your spirit. Scum is what I would refer to them as. I don't blame you. And Collie says people in Tibbers with disabilities are the true revealers of others' character. I believe this is true. Because honestly, the amount of people that I went through who I thought were maybe going to be good fits for me, but then couldn't handle my various disabilities, I like to think of that being the goddess sorting out the trash from the good people that I would eventually meet. I think that it's true. I think those of us with anything different about us really call other people to look deeper and work harder and find more in themselves to be compassionate and loving toward people like us and like you, Aiden. And if they don't, it just proves that they don't have any business being with you in the first place. I may have already asked, but do you know Jessica Kelligren Fozard? I think I've heard of her, yes. I think. Also, Tiefyweefy, if your group has room for it, you should create a space for others to relate and perhaps find new partners. Or, if not that, at least be able to talk about those kinds of things, because I think that might require a new section. Just to be able to talk about something that intimate in case people do want to talk about that, or you know, get dating advice, or even get help, or who knows, maybe even, you know, meet someone. But as far as running the server, I don't want to encourage that too much, because you never know what each other's age is, if you know what I mean, especially in like the VTuber circle, because I myself, I've been very surprised that a lot of people are younger than I thought they were. and things like that. So it is something I'm willing to consider, but only under certain parameters or for certain purposes, I guess I'll say. Aiden says, my problem was we were together 6 months and she was super nice and kind. And then do that personally hurt me because I let my guard down. And how if she didn't want to be with me, just break it off. Oh. And that's really hard to deal with. And in real life, I had to deal with some situations like that with people that I was interested in when I was younger. And it's really not a pleasant experience, and I know it can really shatter your confidence, but still, I would hope that you just realize that at someday, I really believe that the right people or the right person are brought to us. Kale says, can always bot roll that into special segments. I suppose I could. I might need a little bit of help with that though, because I'm not a very talented wizard when it comes to that stuff. Oh no, Kale says, I guess I'll need to rejoin then. I guess maybe you will, or I can, see if someone else can help with that, but, since you are my support part, I might like to have a little bit of your help with that, even if you don't want to be in the group as much. But I don't want to just put on you with all that kind of stuff. I could also just, ask around. Anyway, I hope this chatting session has been fun for everyone so far, and everything like that. I've really enjoyed talking and answering your questions and hanging out for sure. What I'm curious, funniest thing you've ever witnessed? Do you want something in lore or out of lore or somewhere in between? Sure, I can do that, Collie, if you would prefer. I can see if my other mods can help. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Collie, so let me think about that. Okay, so the funniest thing I've ever seen was we used to have some winter wolf puppies around the keep. And these were the children of the very brave and very giving White Fang. who was a winter wolf who was very good friends with Collie and then became kind of a companion to me. And I've talked about him before, and he kind of gave up his life to protect me from what was essentially a rampaging chimera. But anyway, so we had some puppies around the keep that were actually the puppies that he had sired. And so, these little puppies are just, running around and everything. And this is before their frost breath comes in all the way. So it's just like this puff of cold air. It's just, and so the puppies were like running around outside. And there was one of them. It was a male, and we had named him Douglas, after a Douglas fir. And so it was funny because this one day he had stumbled across something that I had filled with a little noise. Like it was a little trinket that I had basically trapped a little short sound in. And the little short sound I had trapped in there was this little sound of an old woman in our kingdom singing a little bit of a song that was kind of like nonsensical, right? It was mostly just it didn't really have any words to it that you could understand. And so the winter wolf puppy Douglas activates this little thing I had made with the sound trapped inside. And the moment he hears this old woman's voice coming from the little trinket I had put it in, he just starts tilting his head, walking all around the little trinket and kind of pawing at it and stuff. And it was just the funniest thing I had ever seen because he acted like he recognized that voice. I don't know how, but it was just so funny to watch his body language. The way he just got really excited and would go up to that thing and wag his tail and really stare at it and move it around. I think that was like one of the funniest things I ever saw. That and when all the puppies would do zoomies where they would just start running through the keep like a bunch of crazy beans for no particular reason. They just start running like there was no tomorrow, like they all had expeditious retreat or haste on them, just running through the keep with their ears back, their mouth open, and just all kinds of funny stuff, and then like stopping short and turning around and running back through the keep. I think that was one of the most funny things. So as you can tell, I'm very much an animal person. I don't have as many animals around me now as I used to at the keep. We still have some horses, but we don't really have much in the way of winter wolves anymore. We decided that it would be better for them to live where it's a little bit cooler because New Caldera can get very toasty, and toasty climates are not good for winter wolves in the long run. Let me catch up. Aiden says, I have a teacher named Douglas, but his nickname is Mr. Douglas. I love it. Oh, I think I remember that. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Did the woman was like, la, 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 la. Yes, and the puppy would just go up and look at it. Yes. Yes, that is the exact moment I'm thinking, Akuri! Hi! Hi, sorry. It took me a minute to get to this in chat. Wow. I'm doing well. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for joining me. Yes. So those winter wolf puppies were pure balls of chaos, but I love them to bits. Gotta show up when TV is live, even if I'm late. Oh, that's super sweet. Better late than never. Oh, thank you. Well, I'm glad that people want to come hang out. It really means a lot. And Sister Rose says, one time we gave one of the cat's balls with a bell in it to the leopard gecko, Shams, to see what he'd do with it. He started to chase it a bit, but eventually he head-butted right across the carpet. It was so funny and cute. Oh, that sounds adorable. And speaking of animals, this is exactly why in If My Heart Had Wings, I do not blame the main girl with a disability, Kotori. This is why I don't blame her for being an animal person, because animals are oftentimes much more compassionate and much more patient and open-minded and loving than people can sometimes be. Sister Rose says, what are your favorite animals, Stevie? That's a hard question. I'm very much a dog person. I just really love their friendly energy. But I love all kinds of animals. I love cats. I love rats. I've actually had them as familiars before. I love all kinds of animals. Ferrets are actually kind of a new interest of mine, like in terms of a familiar or a companion animal. I've been kind of interested in ferrets in general because they seem very playful, and they seem to be full of personality. But they would definitely be a new familiar type for me. But really, it's hard for me to say, like, that I really hate any kind of animal. Like, I pretty much like a lot, but I think I have a very few set that I would actually want to live with me and be familiars or be companions. So I think definitely dogs, cats, rats, ferrets. I've even had like a little bird. Before in real life, I had a budgie before, like a parakeet, and they're cute. And they're full of personality too, but I never really got mine to snuggle with me, and I'm very much a person that likes to snuggle with her creatures. I think I'm very much a druid in that way, even though I'm like a wizard. I think I have very much a part of me that is like that. Jumping spiders are cute. I agree. They are super cute. They are like one of the few spiders that I would actually think are adorable. Let me catch up. Sister Rose. I'm reading up at the top here. Oh, I just thought of another thing. How do you feel the Dragon Prince dealt with disability? I actually have only watched some of that, but Now that you mention it, if there's anything to do with disability in there, I'm gonna have to check it out again. You know, and check out more of it so I could actually maybe even look at that as something to discuss as well, because I didn't even get far enough in that series to know that it was even in there, but it does make me think of Avatar The Last Airbender with Toph. And I think even though like it's not really the same series, it is kind of made by, I believe, the same creators. So I feel like they did a good job with Toph and how they handled her vision impairment, her blindness, and that they actually, in my opinion, did that very well, and they did that in a compassionate and cool way. So I would hope that the Dragon Prince is no different. I am feeling pretty good. I was not expecting to have this just chatting go so well. I didn't know there would be so much to talk about, and I am kind of hydrating a little bit. A little bird would look cute perched on your shoulder. Yes, I think it would too. And then Collie says, "TV, all the caster classes." Oh no. I could probably make that work, but it would be, I mean, that might be a cool way for the wild magic to come out, that I might have a little bit more like a druid-esque, you know, because it's wild, just like animals are wild, but, and Sister Rose says, you can still have animal handling nature as a wizard, I'm sure, yes. Especially if it's in your background. There is a deaf queer main cast member and a few other minor disabled creatures, even a disabled animal. That is so cool. I'm gonna have to take a look at that series again. And I'm really happy that you pointed that out, because otherwise I would not have known that there were any of those topics in there. So I really appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Would definitely recommend the Dragon Prince for disability rep. Characters, not creatures. Okay. Well, either way, I'm a little bit more motivated to check that out now. So, oh boy, let's hope I get unfrozen in my scribble there for a minute. This has been really, really fun. I hope that you all have gotten some time to ask me some really good burning questions, and this has been really fun for me. I wasn't sure what we were gonna end up talking about, and I'm just so glad I left it open, so that we could talk about whatever you lords and ladies brought up. It's been really an interesting night. I'm gonna hydrate a little bit, and so if anyone can think of any other questions, I'm gonna leave myself open for that. any plans to leave the keep and perhaps do a visual novel style roleplay as a tuber. That would be really fun. I would love to be able to do that. I think with my experience now having played a visual novel, I could see like some roleplay. Maybe even with my character as like one of the main characters could be really fun and interesting. And I think it would be awesome to have like maybe you to, maybe like dip my little tail into this, and maybe if there were enough interest, get enough other people involved so that maybe we could actually create something that is like fun and imaginative and everything like that. Any big plans soon in lore? Yes, well, I did mention that with all the Candlekeep stuff, I've been kind of thinking about kind of reaching out to that cloister of scholars, since I feel like I do have a lot in common with them. I have been thinking about perhaps reaching out to them and writing them a very well worded letter, and seeing if they would accept me into their cloister. But I've been very nervous to write such a letter, especially uninvited. But it is one of those things that I've been thinking about. Send them your lewd texts. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm sure that would go over well. Here. Take all this romance I wrote. Will this be good enough to get me in there? Surely you scholars must be lonely and in need of some some kind of excitement. Oh goddess, I don't know how that would go over. I don't know if that would be the angle I would go for immediately, but does your pseudo dragon deliver messages like a certain small dragon that accompanies a well-known magic pony? You mean by having to swallow them and then spit them back up when a reply is received? It's possible. I'm actually gonna have to work with her to figure out just how she's gonna help me send that message. But I have read that sometimes a pseudo dragon can do a little mini version of some transportation magic with things like parchment in such a way. But I will definitely keep all of you lords and ladies posted on such an idea and such an outcome of writing to the cloister of Candlekeep. Asha burps up notes when soon, hopefully in a way that doesn't make her angry with me and not want to come out of her little pocket dimension when I call her. I don't want her to give me stinky, angry eyes, because she's like, no. I rely on her to write a lot of my stuff, so I can't afford to make little Miss Asha, the pseudo dragon, too angry. But yes, I'm sure that might happen soon. If I get up the courage to write that letter and actually send it off. Which, if I really want my circumstances to change, and if I want a little bit of a vacation from the overbearing Lord of Brightlock Keep, aka, well, not necessarily a Brightlock Keep, but, you know, because that's my auntie's job. But, you know, if I want to get away from my father, who's like, you know, has all these expectations for me as his daughter and the only one with any sort of magical, like, aptitude similar to his, then perhaps I should sit down and scribe out that letter and send it, because otherwise I'm gonna just be putting up with more of the same. Then he's gonna say, daughter, why aren't you doing this and that, and why haven't you gotten your magic under control, and good goddess, you should know how to handle all this by now. Oh, that's a good idea, Collie. He says, also, Asha in your cast would be cute. You know, that actually makes me think maybe I should get a version of her, so that I can put her in these casts with me. And now I'm thinking about it, that could actually be a cool channel goal, maybe. That if I reach a certain amount of tithe, I will have the ability to conjure a version of her alongside me, so that she can be a part of my casts as, like, my, familiar. Oh, cool. Yeah, a cute gift like your spinny mini would be good. I agree. So now I'm kind of at a choice point here. Part of me is feeling like we might soon reach a good stopping point for this chatting session. That is, unless anyone has, like, any more questions that they want to ask me. I'm also debating whether to do any of the visual novel and pick it up where we left off, or not. I'm not sure which way I want to go. So chat, do you want to weigh in and let me know what you have interest in? If there's enough of you interested, I could move over to a little bit more of the visual novel. What I might just do is end this cast and come right back with a fresh one, so that the magic registers appropriately and in a good way. So let me know in chat if you're interested in seeing any more of that tonight, or if you're just good with the chat or the, you know, little hangout session we're having. Okay. Kaz says they're good with chat. You can do the visual novel if you want, but might have a question or some more. Okay, that's fine with me. I'm not sure what I want to do yet. I'm kind of getting a little bit low on my stamina, and since I kind of have a feeling like that the visual novel might open up another can of worms, just because of where we left off last time, there is a part of me that wants to keep the nice comfy vibe that we have going and kind of not get triggered by some of the things I'm hoping don't happen next in the visual novel. But if enough of you do want to see more of that, I don't mind. Okay. Yeah, that would be my main concern, is because it left off on a pretty heated moment and it looked like there was gonna be a kind of confrontation. I'm kind of hesitant to engage that because it's gonna like change the whole vibe. And Collie says, I do know that you like to complete what you start where you can. Yes, but I can still do that maybe without necessarily like doing more tonight. But like I said, it just kind of depends, because right now I could go either way. Comf is more important. So, with that in mind, I think then, because I know the next part of the visual novel is probably not going to be that comf, I'm probably, if you guys, if you lords and ladies want to see more of that, I would like to be able to do a stream tomorrow as well, but it will be kind of more at this, it may be earlier in the day than it typically is, possibly, but I am planning to do a stream tomorrow, or a cast tomorrow, in which I continue the visual novel so that if there is anything overly triggering, like, I'm prepared to deal with that and not disrupt the like comfy library hangout vibe we have right now. So I think if the princess has to say what she wants to do, I think I will say I might just finish up this this chat that we have going on, and then probably just call this cast for tonight, and then just pick up some more of the visual novel tomorrow, where I'm gonna have a dedicated space to deal with whatever is next. And also for you lords and ladies too, in case you don't have the bandwidth, any plans to upgrade your Scrycast service or Scryball detection power? Yes. I do feel that some upgrades to some of that arcane sensitivity and those arcane channels are gonna be important. And I'm sure that those will be happening. And it may even be accessible to me should the cloister at Candlekeep be interested in hosting me. Maybe so you can one day reattempt Baldur's Gate 3. Goddess. Yes. An improved magic scrying item would help with that, and some more casting power would definitely help with that. That may be something I would be willing to look into again, but I will tell you, because I'm not really familiar with those kinds of games, I'm still probably not going to be the best, but at least the capture of the world would be a little bit better without having to crank down the resolution on the captures to even get in game. But yes, I would be willing to redo it, definitely with some better magic items and some better arcana and arcane peripherals. Would also help you a lot with making your cast smooth. Yes. Yes. Because as I'm sure you all can see on your end, things are lagging. And my casting rate is kind of down. And so a much more powerful scrying item would help with that. And it would make a lot of things smoother, including helping Asha to do a better job of doing dictation for me. And Kali, it might even allow me to project at least something to do with you if you should like. Because I've heard that sometimes powerful enough magic items can capture not just one, but two people. But that is only if you are interested, of course. I do know that you like just being my support bard, and I'm here for that, so. But if we did go, and I did get accepted to Candlekeep, you know I'd be taking you with me. And then Chloe says, well then, it would be a good idea to get word into that cloister as soon as you can. Agreed. Especially before anyone, most notably my daddy, tries to talk me out of it and say, daughter, what are you doing? I didn't give you the idea to do that. How dare you think for yourself? Of course I would take you with me. I mean, I'm independent for the most part, but going somewhere without you just doesn't seem or feel right. Besides, I'm not sure a lot of those scholars would know what to do with me. And I also wouldn't let them get anywhere near me even if I did need help. I trust you over them any day. The goddess sent you to me after all. Ugh, Scryball, stop freezing. And there is one, yes, some upgrades and some changes of scenery might be more than just desired, they might be needed for me in my near future. But I will keep all of you lords and ladies posted. One thing that wasn't covered often, you talked last time on your stream about how Ageha is like your IRL mother versus your in-law mother. What is your IRL father like versus your in-law one? That is a good question. My IRL father is actually fairly kind. He is well read and very worldly, like my father in lore. But the biggest difference between them is that my real life father has encouraged me to be the best self I can be, whatever that means. He has given me the freedom to explore my own talents and skills however I see fit. And he has trusted me to build a life for myself that I will be happy with. And he always raised me with the belief that if I was not happy with my life, that the only person I should look to change that is me. And he taught me from a very early age to roll with the punches, to not let life get you down. And he is still a great inspiration for me. We don't talk as often as we probably should. But he always used to say, Tiefy, here's the good news. Whatever happens in life, the reality of it is this. If you want something to change, it's up to you. If you want things to stay the same, it's up to you. And he also used to say, if it gets to be, meaning if it will be a reality, it's up to me. And so I've really kind of embodied that, or tried to. My father-in-law, however, by comparison, as you all know from me talking about him, is less understanding, less compassionate, and far less patient or supportive. So in a way, my parents-in-law are kind of the reverse of their real life equivalents. Aiden, I see you redeemed there. I'm gonna do it for you. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna drink a little bit of water here. Okay, here we go. Ada. So is there a reason why your father-in-law has his issues with you? Was that on purpose? Yes. Because I will say that, my IRL father also had some difficulty with me as a child. He had some difficulty dealing with my disability and sort of trying to figure out what to do with me. And so, while my IRL father has some really great qualities, some of my father-in-law's not good qualities are kind of based on those not so good ones, but like exaggerated and many more not good qualities. And yes, there was a reason that I had that in lore, so that me, being who I am right now, that I could confront those things in my IRL father and some of the other IRL male figures that I've had, like a stepfather and some other people. And so my father-in-law sort of represents a culmination of some of those really difficult negative qualities, so that I, as my VTuber self, can have the space and the reason to confront and overcome those in a way that I hope is more positive and more lasting than whatever I was able to do as myself in my real life. if that makes sense. DM reason to give you a character growth challenge, yes. Which in part is what I see reaching out to Candlekeep to be. Because it challenges me to reach out for what I want and what I have skills for versus what my father may have believed or may still want for me or may still believe that I should be based on whose daughter I am. And that kind of has some reverberations IRL. That as supportive as my father was in certain areas, he failed me in others in being there and supporting me in actuality when I needed to make life choices for myself, or when I ended up using my skills for different things than he thought I would. Although he gave me the impression of being supportive, there were moments in my young adult life and in my early 20s where he was not like the most supportive that he could have been. And so for me, that's kind of where I've tried to put my father-in-law as sort of the collection of that. But this isn't all just an act, yeah? Like some level beyond Chuni. Well, it is and it isn't. I have blended myself in such a way that pretty much what I consider my lore is pretty closely based off of my own life. So I have made it to where there's really, I've wanted it to be where the self that I am draws very heavily from the experiences that I've actually had, but puts them in like a different perspective and a different mode of looking at them, so that I can do some work through myself that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise, if that makes sense. Kind of like how the authors write characters based off of their lives. Kind of like that. It's, in my opinion, it's a little unavoidable. In some ways, we cannot be what we already. We can't be what we aren't, if that makes sense. Like, not in reality. Like, no matter. Even as an author, even if we're writing like 5 different characters, the reality is within each of those 5 characters, there is an aspect of ourselves in them, or there is an aspect of people we know in those characters. And so for me, as my VTubing self, I've treated it the same way. That yes, I have a similar background and I have similar life experiences, but I've tried to re-experience them in a way that helps me move beyond some of the damage that has occurred IRL. I don't know if anyone else does that, But that's also kind of what I try to use roleplay for. Is for the same thing, and D&D in general for the same thing, is to have moments to express and make different choices or become stronger or say or do the things as whatever character I'm role-playing in D&D as a way to help me resolve the unresolvable. So, in a way, have the ability to turn back time or turn back some of the trauma or the damage that's been done. Yes, Kali, so roleplay as therapy is absolutely where I'm going with this. And it's something that I believe in very strongly because ever since I started playing D&D 5e, I have given myself and been given many opportunities to roleplay out some very difficult things that were it not for the roleplay and for the ability to create a character close enough to me but different enough. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had to heal and to improve myself. And it's a good way to relieve stress. And a lot of that stress for me in the past used to be old thoughts and feelings and other aspects of my life that I had no other way of releasing or processing through, and I feel like D&D is a huge I feel like that's a huge vehicle to do that, but only if you're open to it and only if you're brave enough to go there and you are fortunate enough like what I've been fortunate enough to be blessed with, which are people in my life who are willing to go and do that. And Colin says, sorry to put you on the spot like that, Tiffy. You are amazing to be able to do that. It's okay. I don't feel like you put me on the spot. I just feel like maybe my answers are a bit like rambling or some of them might surprise people, but I think that being a VTuber is probably one of the best things I did for myself. I feel like I'm a better person in IRL because of what I'm able to do here and the friends that I have here. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. It's amazing to me to think that this time last year I wasn't doing anything like this. And now here I am, and I have so much support and so many people who care for me. I wake up every day and I'm like, is this really real? Do I really have people who enjoy hanging out with me? Like, it's mind-boggling. But it's something that I'm grateful for because I've not only been able to get progress as a person and as a tiefling, but I feel like I've been able to make progress in actually creating and sharing some of the thoughts that I've always wanted to share, that before, when I was only a writer, I felt kind of blocked up and sort of kept away from sharing in the best way because my mind was so like locked down in this like one way to do things, and I feel like VTubing has opened up my mind a bit more and said, hey, Tiefy, like, maybe you can make some content in a different way, and maybe it'll reach more people that way. Maybe you won't be fighting with so much loneliness and isolation. And I really feel like that's happened for me. Though not in any way that I would have ever expected. So it's because of all of you that I'm spending my Friday night casting on Twitch. Oh my goddess, Lily! Thank you for the raid! Oh my goddess! Hello! Hello! Everyone, welcome raiders, welcome Lily! I was just in the middle of, just chatting with some lovely folks, and, we've been having a good time at it. Thank you so much for the raid. So very unexpected, but so very welcome. My evening has been treating me very well. I've got to have some really good discussions. Thank you for the follow. And so I've been really enjoying myself, just getting to hang out with everyone and answer questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. So it has been fun, just getting to talk about a lot of different things. We talked about some anime and disability. We talked about, one of my most recent casts, which was actually on that new D&D book. We talked about that for a while. We talked about, characters with disabilities in D&D. We also talked about a little bit of romance and erotica and disability and some of that stuff, and also some of my plans for the future. And I was actually debating whether to get into more of the visual novel that I've been working through, which is the If My Heart Had Wings one, which does feature a main female character who is a wheelchair user, which is one of the reasons I am looking at it this month, with this month being Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, which is actually the disability I have. And Kali, I see that you are doing a redeem, so I'm gonna do it. Okay. Ada. Ever since I put that on there as a redeem, people have been really liking me to do that, so. Oh, headbats and wiggles too, okay. Thank you, Kali. I did not see that somehow in between the raid. So here you go. I'm gonna conjure my mage hand. There it is. And then we're gonna get some wiggles. Wiggle going. Okay. That's enough, mage hand. Boop. Alright. So, since we have a lot of lovely raiders with us, I think that I would be willing to transfer into the visual novel for a little bit, just to give all of the raiders something fun and interesting. Even though sitting and chatting with me is fun and interesting by itself, I'm thinking it might be fun to move into the visual novel a little bit. So I think what I might do is just take a moment and transfer over into the new mode. Just for a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put up one of my scriball screens here really quick and do a quick little transfer over. So I hope everyone will be patient with me while we do that.